So I'm just going to do the normal checks just to see whether we are live or not, and then afterwards we are going to start. Just be a short stream this time, just a quick recap of what happened whilst I was busy streaming other stuff. So have a little look there. I'm still not seeing myself. Okay, go live. I seem to be live, I think. So let's just assume that's right, and we'll see how it goes. Brilliant. So welcome everyone. Yeah, been quite an exciting time last few games. So as we saw during the a stream earlier, then Leela made a very good job of this French Tarrasch and won a good game, very good game actually, very impressive. And then it was Stockfish's turn to have a go, and yeah, that didn't actually work out quite as well. But it's quite interesting what happened, because really I got a little sense of déjà vu when I saw this game, because so if we look back, after b5, Stockfish came up with the move a3 rather than Leela's knight e2, but actually it didn't really matter, because we just transposed after queen b6, knight e2, knight c6, castles, and Stockfish played this same pawn sacrifice on d4, and then played b4. But here, Leela played slightly differently here. h6 to stop knight g5 or bishop g5, a6, and then no bishop e3 from Stockfish, so just bishop f4. And here Leela played to exchange off the rooks. It looked pretty nasty, to be honest. Rook c1, knight b6, queen c6, 6 check, king d8. But it seemed to be all right. I mean, this also looked pretty ropey, but there was a key resource here. Bishop d4, bishop e7, bishop a7 was played, g5, takes, and gradually, Leela started to unravel. This was a good resource. Knight takes c5, and things started to clear up, although, you know, it still felt rather fraught. The funny thing was that certainly this position, this position here, reminded me enormously of the Leela Stockfish classical game from the season 17 SuperFinal, where Leela reached this position from a French. Again, an unusual French where Leela also sacrificed the d4 pawn. But this time, after in this position, rook g8, Leela was giving 2.22 and Stockfish was giving 3.62. So, you know, very different evaluations. Sorry, I'll just move it up a little bit there, so you can see. 2.22, 3.62. So, I mean, really, yeah, really dangerous there. So, yeah, I mean, it was quite interesting to you know, to see this, you know, that's kind of a small difference in the position. I mean, essentially what's happened, if you compare the two, we can just do that quite nicely here and here. What really happened was that in the season 17 game, Leela got the same type of position, but had already got its knight to d4 and could get his kingside pawns rolling. In this game, White didn't have that, wasn't able to get the knight free, and so the kingside pawns weren't able to roll, and this somehow, you know, gave black just enough counterplay in order to survive. But it was yeah, very close, and you know, very interesting to see this. You know, it was really really quite tight there. So that, yeah, that was very exciting. So now let's go back. Whoops, sorry, just randomly. Oh, good Lord. randomly moving another screen there. So let's now have a look at the current game, which is played when Stockfish is leading 13.5, 12.5. Yeah, I mean, tight match, and yeah, Leela clearly showing that it can play some beautiful chess, and then also some tough defensive chess as well. So I don't know, looking like a tight Sufi, I have to say. Yeah, Mr. Beats is saying 55-45 to Leela, but I'm not 100% sure about that. So let's go to the current game. Live. There we go. And what we see is we've got a Najdorf Sicilian. Now let's have a look at how this one came about. So e4, c5, knight f3, d6, d4, takes, knight f6, knight c3, a6, bishop e2. In principle, a quiet variation of the Najdorf Sicilian, but yeah, I mean, it's got a fair amount of venom. I remember I had a game against Jan Elvist, a very strong Estonian player, in the 1997 World Championship knockout, and yeah, I had some tough games against 6 bishop e2. I have to say, he was very strong in that. So e5, knight b3, bishop e7, and bishop e3. Now this is actually quite subtle. I mean, it looks, and you always think, certainly if you've seen Karpov games, it always looks like you know, White's just going to castle kingside, and it's just going to be nice and quiet. But there are quite a few subtle move orders along the way, because White does have the possibility of playing g4 to g5, and Black's got to be very careful when he castles. I mean, if White castles, then it's safe for Black to castle. But here, when White plays bishop e3, Black should not be playing castles here. Black should be playing something like bishop e6, and waiting until White castles in order to castle himself. And the drawback to bishop e3 is that after f4, you can play e takes f4, bishop f4, and White's bishop has reached f4 in 2 squares. So yeah, if Black plays bishop e6 too early, if Black plays bishop e6 too early, then, you know, f4 can be a dangerous line. But here, when White's wasted tempo with bishop e3, f4 can just be met by e takes f4, and that's the you know, that's the basic idea. So yeah, castles is an inferior move, and it gets hit by g4. Black's been move ordered basically. Bishop e6, and now g5, and knight fd7, and yeah, I mean, this is actually quite awkward for Black. Yeah, I mean, normally in these situations, you know, because this looks a little bit like a bishop e3 Najdorf, you know, and normally in these situations where you wouldn't have this knight on d7, it would have got to h5 somehow. You would have had b5 in already, you know, this sort of thing, or you would have stopped White from playing g4 by going h5 yourself. But this is pretty, I mean, this is pretty nasty. I mean, 0.44 from Leela. I'd even maybe expect a little bit more, I have to say. So a5 was played, which is quite interesting, I have to say. I'll just have a quick look at the opening theory on this, because I'm slightly intrigued whether a5... I mean, in principle, this is a mistake from Black, so, you know, I mean, but I'm sure it has been played in human games, and we'll just have a look how many. Oh, quite a few games here. So we've got quite good results for White, although yeah, some wins for Black as well. Yeah, I mean, what have we had in this position? We've had knight b6, we've had knight c6, we've had b5, but we've had 4 games with a5. And decent players have played this with Black. Kolovic, Yilmaz are 2 well-known players. I think Alexander Kolovic, that must be the GM, and Yilmaz Yilmaz is a GM, I think, as well. So quite interesting. Strange enough, 3 wins for black from this line, but it does look pretty ropey. So a5 played, and then f4 from white. I mean, white's just going to try and gain a lot of space. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you could even, even moves like a4 attempting simply to stop the march of the a pawn. But okay, f4 is pretty typical and a good idea. Bishop takes f4, knight c6. Black's not really concerned about the d6 pawn. I think you'll probably just, if it takes, you probably just end up taking or going knight e5, and the dark squares around the e pawn are the weak ones. So just sacrificing the d6 pawn to exchange off the dark squared bishops is no bad thing. And then knight d4 played from Leela. Rook c8 and knight db5. That's an interesting one. Don't often see that in the Najdorf Sicilian, but on the other hand, you don't often see, well, this move a5 is not particularly common. I mean, you played a6 to stop anything coming to b5, so so I guess that was the kind of the specific factor that stimulated Leela to play knight d4. Just the fact that black's played a5. I mean, a4 to a3 was a possibility anyway, so just sort of well, basically getting ahead of what black was planning, and yeah, this knight's pretty well entrenched on b5. You won't be getting rid of that one very easily. So yeah, evaluation for Leela 0.58. That's pretty promising, and for Stockfish 1.12. Which is, positive for white, but probably not too depressed either. So, yeah, that's quite interesting there. So, what's Stockfish looking for? Well, Stockfish is not looking for passivity here. I mean, what are obvious moves for black? Something like knight de5 is quite an obvious move, just occupying e5 and yeah, blocking the attack of the bishop. But these positions after knight de5, let me just get the PGN again. That would be not such a bad sight for Leela fans. That was what was that, game 27? I'm losing count, I have to say. Game 25. Yeah, this is game 27 actually, isn't it? New game, paste PGN. Yeah, I mean, knight d5 is a pretty normal move, but the point is, I mean, you really see, this looks, if I don't really pay attention, this feels like a typical Najdorf Sicilian position that I've had many times. Only normally, this pawn would be on a6 and this knight would be on b3. I think probably with the pawn on a5, knight on b5, that probably all of these positions are just not very good for black. There's probably not very many good ways of developing counterplay. So I think this explains why Stockfish is looking for this move, f6, just to actually just create something and yeah, open up the king side. But this does look quite risky. Let's have a little look to see what the lines are. Expecting queen d2. Yeah, I mean, if we're looking at the PVs here, then yeah, I mean, well, you're seeing here, I mean, basically Stockfish is going to try and sacrifice a pawn for yeah, for compensation. Well, sacrifice a pawn, get into an ending and try and hold it due to compensation, and the fact that the white pawns are slightly weak. Yeah, possible. I wonder whether, yeah, feels a bit sad really for white just to go into a slightly better endgame from here. I'm just sort of wondering whether there could be something a little bit better. Yeah, I mean, I suppose kind of all depends on the counterplay that's generated. I'm not 100% sure how much that actually is. Ouch, my back. Ow. So, yeah, let's have a look. F4. So, I mean, one idea that you could definitely think of is to go knight takes d6, just attacking the rook on c8. Another idea is knight d5, with the idea of taking, I could take on here maybe. And if queen e7, then bishop d6. It's a possibility. I mean, this has a certain playful edge to it. H5 or yeah, I don't know, rook g1, something like that. Possible, you know, possibly quite interesting there. Yeah, obviously queen d2 is what Leela is playing. Pardon me. Bishop g4 maybe. Looks a little bit loose, really. All right, I mean, let's have a look at knight takes d6 and just see what's happening there, because it's not 100% obvious to me, I have to say. Now, yeah, I mean, black's not going to move the rook, and I don't think black's really going to take on here either. I mean, this is just too tempting for white, who's going to castle queenside afterwards. So I suppose the only thing that that really makes any sense is to go FG. Let's have a quick check. Queen d2 has been played. Not too surprising, I suppose, but knight takes d6, FG. So yeah, I mean, I think knight takes c8 is kind of forced, because after here, bishop g5, knight c8, I'll have bishop h4 check, and well, obviously hg, queen takes g5 looks rather frightening for white. I mean, you do have a king as well, of course, but yeah, the idea is that you want to go knight takes c8 here, and then yeah, interesting question really. I suppose I could go, I'm not sure, GF, you go knight e7, queen e7. How about that? Well, yeah, maybe not so bad for black. I mean, we're getting f3 and knight on e5, queen on b4. Probably quite dangerous, I'd imagine. So this is probably the big idea then of f6, just to sacrifice the exchange and then just claim good compensation. I mean, it is just an exchange, so that doesn't have a pawn for the knight, but it's probably yeah, I think it's probably going to be very good. This a lot of play on the dark squares. So okay, so I think you understand where that's coming from, really. I mean, in the same way, something like knight d5, fg, knight e7, queen e7, bishop d6, queen f6 looks kind of worrying for white there, really. And it's not 100% clear, this one. You know, I could go maybe rook f1, queen b2. You've got to be careful that you don't lose your queen, but it's probably, well, I don't know actually. Rook b1. Oh, we throw in rook f1. That's the problem. I wanted to play queen a2. Oops. Knight c3, which seems to trap the queen quite nicely. But rook b1. Yeah, queen takes b2. I could take on f8 like this, and then if knight f8, then I do actually trap the queen like this. This is quite funny, but I guess black would probably play rook takes f8, bishop f8, knight takes f8. How is this? Some counterplay for black, but I'm I'm not, yeah, I don't know. Not 100% sure. Is this really going to be? Is this really going to be enough for black? Maybe. I mean, move like this is quite awkward with checks, and the rook on a1 still hanging. Not 100% clear to me, but probably quite, probably not so bad. I mean, you could also take on e7 with a knight, of course, but that looks a bit funny. I mean, I'd much rather play an active move like Queen e7. Okay, so but anyway, White's gone Queen d2. Then let's have a little look to see what's cooking here. Queen d2, f takes g5. So where were we there? Queen d2, f takes g5, and then bishop takes g5. I mean, I think if you take with the h pawn, of course, you'll just probably start with rook f4 and bishop g5 or something like that, and that should be pretty decent compensation. Or maybe, you know, after hg, maybe you go knight e5 first, but then you're going to target that bishop. So bishop g5 and then h6 and bishop e7. So we're really, yeah, I mean, we're really heading for this position here. So after queen takes c7 with castling, rook cd8, queen takes d6, takes rook takes, knight c5, rook d1 takes, knight takes. Yeah, what is this ending? I don't know really. I mean, to be honest, I'd kind of expect black to draw this one. I mean, you've lost the d pawn, but that was a bit of a sickly child, really. You know, for the rest, really, the queen side has sort of disappeared. So you know, you had lots of weaknesses there, but they're not so important anymore. And black's got this open f file, you know, to attack pawns on here, h4, e4. Yeah, you know, I mean, I would, I'd, yeah, it's the sort of endgame line that you know, you might even think of playing for yourself as black. Then, if you came across it, as you know, if you analysed it properly, then you know, it could be a way of making a draw against a stronger player. So I'm not super impressed by this endgame play somehow, or by Leela's prosecution of this position, because it looked like it should be a little bit more than that. You know, a little bit more of an attack, a little bit more of an initiative, really. And yeah, just going for this endgame, slightly better endgame. And maybe it's, you know, more than just slightly better, but I'm not sure I'd say it was clearly better for White. I think you know, White really, you know, black really looks like should be able to do something in this position. I mean, let's have a look through the PVs. So let's have a look at Leela's there. Let's just lock them just to be sure that nothing strange happens. Rook d1, rook d, knight d6, knight e5. Nice knights for black. Rook f2, rook d2, knight f7, king f8, rook g1. Ooh, bishop f5. That's a strange move. I wouldn't have guessed that one. Knight d6, king e7. Yeah, I don't know really. Is this ending going to be winning for White? I don't know. Wouldn't have thought so, really. Two pawns, one pawn remote. I don't know. Difficult to say, that one. Some strange moves along the way, though. And this is Stockfish's. Let's just lock that PV just to be sure. Okay, so yeah, okay, we're playing to win the A pawn, it expects, rather than the D pawn. Risky. Yeah, Stockfish is showing its risky side there. Queen d6, rook d6, knight b6, rook d8, rook d5. I mean, this actually looks quite promising for White, I have to say. I would have thought so, you know, with two passed pawns. Well, that knight on b7 is a little bit awkward. Black gets the pawn on g4 running quickly. Yeah, this would definitely end up as a draw, because you'll somehow manage to sacrifice your knight for both those queenside pawns. So yeah, I mean, you know, both PVs really, yeah, both those PVs look well, like a high tendency to a draw. I think, you know, I think that's the Stockfish PV has changed as well. It also wants this the same ending as Leela. Actually, I think we're virtually, well, no, yeah, I mean, yeah, this is just this ending, and yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's advantage for white, not too much risk of losing, but yeah, is it really enough for a win? Not convinced. Not convinced. So let's have another look again at Leela's PV now. Oh, sorry, I'm clicking in totally the wrong place there. Takes rook d6, rook d1, takes knight e5. Let's try and hold it. Yeah, still this slightly strange move. Oh, pardon me. A bit tired. Yeah, I mean, I suppose the problem is that Black's a little bit paralysed, really, you know, in this position, I guess. Yeah, hard to move the knight from f7 without allowing something like rook d8 check. Maybe. Yeah, I don't know even, actually. I'm not even sure I'm convinced about what I'm saying there. So, yeah, takes rook f1. Yeah, it's a bit of a risky ending to go for, I think. I'm sure there's better for Black than this, because this resulting ending is quite unclear, and yet you would have expected that the Black Knight can cause some irritation here. You know, I mean, you go knight f4 and you go h5, h4, h3, and once the h-pawn gets advanced enough, then your chances of sacrificing a knight for two pawns on the queen side, you know, without get really much higher. So, yeah, I don't know. I think that's probably, even this is probably a draw, even though it looks quite promising for white. So, yeah, I mean, odds on I think for a draw this game. Interesting questions to you know, what white could have done. What white could have done apart from this. Yeah, I mean something like yeah, I mean you know, just on the 12th move, I mean, even a4, you know, is not completely stupid. I mean, you just okay, Black gets some access to b4, but I'm really hammering my knight into the b5 square, you know, which is quite a pleasant square. I could also, you know, look at something like a3, you know, just to stop Black from going a4 to a3, and just make sure my queen side's stable. And then if you go a4, I just hop away and then come back afterwards. That's yeah, I mean, that's pretty decent. Other lines, yeah, I mean, even knight d5 looks quite interesting as well. And if a4, I'll probably just come back knight c1. Doesn't look so stupid to do that. Yeah, this move f4. Yeah, not 100% sure about it. It's I was always quite pleased to see it in my Najdorfs, but of course I didn't have the pawn on a6. I had on a5. I had the pawn on a6. So yeah, I mean, that's not particularly yeah, that's not helping the Black position. But yeah, I don't know whether knight db5 was correct. This f6 move is quite unusual. I haven't seen it in these types of positions. I mean, normally, you know, playing f6, the central line squares are too weak. It's not something you really want to do, but here it seems to work out quite quite well. Yeah, I mean, I was very tempted by G6 simply, and G6 HG, and maybe then just go Queen D2 and castles, and just keep your space advantage, your lovely light squares, central light squares, and potential kingside chances. I mean, yeah, I mean this seemed quite interesting. Just here and then castles, and then you'll use that later to go h5, h6. Use this pawn as a hook for a kingside attack. Just what does Stockfish think of that? Probably absolutely nothing. Oh, have I got my engines? Just close that one. Ah, there we are. No, start. Yay, engine. Oh, well, he quite likes it. Ah, okay, that was the idea. Haha. Yes, okay, but that's the idea. Oh, that's very sneaky. Oh, good lord! Sorry. F4. This is very sneaky. So I was looking at playing this move G6, and I was assuming that after the black would take on G6 and I go Queen D2, which was looking quite promising with Stockfish. But Stockfish's idea was rather nasty, actually, just to play F5 straight away. And yeah, you're threatening bishop takes H4, which is going to be rather embarrassing, actually. So yeah, you just ignore that G6 pawn. Okay, that's rather clever indeed. That's rather clever. So it could be that this move Queen D2 is the best, but I don't know, this ending, not so sure about it. I don't think it's against these engines. I'm not sure it's really winnable. So we should probably feel like we should be having some. We should be playing something else. I mean, the problem with F6 isn't possible yet, not with the knight on D4. So in a way, it's a shame to play knight DB5, even though it is quite a tempting move. The problem though is if you go Queen D2, then yeah, I mean, I guess we're going knight takes D4, and then maybe we do the same thing, F6. But I don't know. Can we do this idea here now? G6. Stockfish not particularly impressed. It is less impressive with a pair of knights exchanged. Yeah, some crazy lines from Stockfish here. Rook G1 to support G5 and then D5, and Bishop C5 to pin the rook on G1 there. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm also, yeah, I'm thinking about a move like A3 here, or a move like Queen D2. But yeah, I mean, you're just going to go A4 and A3. I mean, that's why White played this move Knight D4, just to just to sidestep really. Just intrigued really. What I'll just lock Stockfish from this position, just let it run for a little bit. Rook C8. Yeah, not clear. Not clear. It sort of feels like, yeah, I have a feeling I'm being forced into into a certain way of playing that I maybe don't necessarily want to. Because spending all this time just going after the D6 pawn and then finding out that Black's got compensation on the dark squares, that's it's not a huge surprise really that that Black does have that compensation. So I'd really like to do I'd really like to try something else, a different plan here. Let's have a look. Let's see. I mean, Stockfish considers A4 vaguely, which I don't think is silly. Then wants to go to F4. This whole plan, but I do wonder, what if I just go A3 in this position? What do you think of that one, young Stockfish? It's not so bad, you know. I mean, A4, I just bring my knight back to D2 like this, and yeah, I mean, you know, Black's played A5 to A4, but I mean, for the rest, how is he going to get any queenside counterplay here? You know, I think that White looks quite solid here. Yeah, Stockfish slightly impressed, but not really very impressed. I mean, this move A4 is also quite interesting. You know, I'm just going to go Queen D2 and castles. I mean, you know, I'm not really so worried, I think, about your attack. Oh, it's a clever move. Stockfish looking at knight A6 here, with the idea of knight D5. We go knight C7 and challenge the the knight on D5 there. But yeah, I can go Queen D2, knight B4 and castles. I know it looks a little bit funny with a pawn in A4, but on the other hand, you've got such good control over B5. It's going to be very hard for Black to do something. But then it gets sharp. I mean, Stockfish looking at breaking with F5 here, and yeah, again, you know, not clear, not easy, the position. So, oh, pardon me. It's how interesting. H4. Is that really a good move? I mean, could I play a move like Queen D2 actually, and then meet A5 with F4, or is this? Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to save a tempo, you know, and but I guess knight C6. Yeah, we're gonna, you know, get into something similar, because I can't go knight D4. You know, that would be the ideal way, because the bishop takes G5. So, I mean, I guess I really do need H4, but this move A5 looks, yeah, I didn't believe it at all. I mean, that's the point. I felt very surprised about it, but yeah, looking at it, it doesn't look bad at all for Black. F4 takes, knight C6, knight D4, rook C8, and we just give up the pawn here. Yeah, I mean, incredible concept. Of course, you know, it's I'm lauding this great play, but I mean, Black is just you know, slightly to clearly somewhere in between there, worse in the ending, but still, you know, just a very nice concept, because it's very easy to get into trouble with Black here. So very, very nice indeed. Let's have a quick look to see where we are in the game. F6, no, rook takes D6. So this ending has appeared on the board, but yeah. Yeah, I don't see any side winning this. You know, it's always one of those things, you know, where you know, one side has a weakness, and then you know, the opponent puts all of the effort into winning that weakness, and then all that does is free your opponent's pieces, because they no longer have a weakness to worry about, so they just go on their merry way, and yeah, all your pieces are just uselessly pointing at a pawn that no longer exists. So yeah, no, quite strange really, but yeah, very interesting. But I'm not, yeah, I can't think, you know, just obviously how white should improve the play here. So it'd be very intriguing to see what Stockfish comes up with as white. But I'm suspecting that maybe not so much actually, because seems to be following. I mean, I tried Queen D2, Rook G1 instead of H4. It doesn't really look that much better, really. I mean, H4 protects the pawn with a pawn, so it just sort of feels like the best thing. I suppose the only way that this could work better is if you had some clever idea involving using this rook, the activity of this rook. But yeah, I don't really see it. I mean, I do like this move A4, but yeah, doesn't seem to be astoundingly good for white there. Just wondering, yeah, Rook G1. If you go A5 and I go A4, I want to go Knight A6, Knight D5, and then Knight B4, and just challenging this this knight here. Yeah, but I mean, in all fairness, that's probably just a little bit better, these sort of positions. What's he looking at? Knight takes D5. Ooh, F5 even, maybe. Quite active. It's quite unusual. It's very unusual. It's taking me some time to sort of get my head around this this whole concept. But yeah, I mean, as I said, I've always learned or worked out for myself that the way that Black's played it with this move order, castling before White's castled himself, allowing G4 is extremely inaccurate, and leads to an extremely difficult position. And I mean, that's not completely incorrect, but looking looking at this plan with A5, which it's known in the in Najdorf and Boleslavsky positions, but still feels quite unusual in this position. Yeah, I mean, this seems to be destabilizing white enough to get a quite a decent position, and I find that quite yeah, quite surprising in actual fact. But yeah, I mean, that's what these engines are for, really. They're here to amaze us, astound us, and show us things that we didn't know. And certainly in my case, this is certainly true. But yeah, so yeah, going to be interesting to see what Stockfish comes up with white, and if Stockfish finds something different to Leela, because somehow the path in this line seems to be quite predetermined, really. But we've seen it quite often, that when both engines have been thinking about it during a game, they seem to have the same ideas, same PV, and then when it comes to playing one side of it, yeah, just completely different. And yeah, I think that's yeah, that will hopefully happen here as well. So yeah, so what have we got? We've got this game, and then the next one, and then afterwards the one after that is yeah, it's a pretty short book exit, and yeah, slightly unusual line, but yeah, I mean, this is really giving I think full scope to the engines to choose their development schemes and yeah, develop in the way they want. So yeah, I'm not 100% sure that it would lead to a win, but yeah, it was it was quite yeah, there were quite a few wins in my test games. So yeah, depends a little bit on how sharp the development scheme is that they choose. But anyway, we'll see how that goes. But in principle, quite an interesting line, and something that's been tried by a few British players recently. So yeah, from that point of view, quite interesting as well. Yeah, okay, so I think I'm going to leave it here. I think there's probably for now, not so much more to be said. We're just going to see whether Stockfish can hold this ending, but I think a very good chance that it will be able to. And then, yeah, will be intriguing to see what Stockfish comes up with as white. Yeah, so I think I'm probably not going to be streaming tomorrow. I think I've got some family commitments to take care of, but I'll obviously I'll have TCC running on my phone. I'll try and tweet and comment a little bit. It's too exciting just to miss for any period of time. But and then probably next week I'll do a little bit more streaming, probably in the sort of the well, mornings UK times and that sort of thing. So there we are. Thanks very much indeed, everyone. Hope that was helpful, instructive, and yeah, you know, just thanks very much, everyone, for everything. Oh, just seeing a question. Matthew, do you think the Sicilian favours Stockfish? No, not really. I don't think. It's yeah. I mean, we used to have things that the French favoured Leela and the Sicilian favoured Stockfish, and then it turns round and turns round. You know, I mean, in general, in an out and out tactical battle, then you know, Stockfish is stronger, of course. But I mean, you see in these Sicilians, even the sharp ones, there's a lot of strategy in it as well.